The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Welcome back to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick, your host from Firearm Mentor. And we were mid-conversation with Jim Stepp from Jaws on Fishing Charters. He was just explaining to us that he fixed a problem on a vehicle that was at the dealership 4 times, and his friend's dad was very impressed. And the last thing we heard was that if you want to go into business, I'll fund you. And that was from his friend's father.
If you ever want to start an auto repair shop and you want to start it with my son, I'll fund you. So I was racing motorcycles all over the country at that time. I was working for an auto repair shop in Wheeling called Rick's Auto Repair.
I'm familiar.
And the guy gave me a nice place to work on my motorcycles, and I had I could get Fridays off so we could travel. We had a motor home there, and he let me park my motor home there. So we traveled all over the United States racing these motorcycles. So I had a pretty good living going on there. I was making great money, and I wasn't really in course to start my own business at that time. I had a lot of other things going on until the day happened. And I just finished doing a motor job. I'll never forget it the rest of my life. I just got done to finish this big motor job, and the owner got paid cash. And he was standing there counting his money, and he looked at the guy that was going to the race, my track guy, the guy that helped me at the track. He looked right at him. He goes, "Yep." He says, "All I got to do is sit around here, count my money, and watch him work." And it was like hitting me over the baseball bat. I said, I got to stop running so hard and maybe start a career on my own. At that time, I was working for Snap-on Tools at night. They didn't have tech reps that would demo their equipment. Most of your Snap-on tool guys that ran the trucks, about all they knew was about a 9/16 wrench looked like. They didn't know how to operate the MT3500, which was the first scan tool that ever came out in 1980 and a half. They didn't know how to operate that stuff. So I did. I was very good at it. I knew all about it. So I started going at night, and they'd take me to different places, and I would do little classes. They would sell their computers or charging equipment or any type of test equipment. I was really good at this stuff. So I was doing that. And then one night here, I was in Palatine, and I seen this shop, and these guys were saying if they ever had the money, they would open this shop up down the street. I got done with my seminar that night. I went down the street, looked at the building, took the next day off, and that was in 1993, the November of 1993, found the owner of the building. We hit it off really well. The guy was a super nice guy to me. He wanted me to be in business. And me and my partner at the time, he had a wife, house. I really didn't have all that stuff going on. I was a rebel. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll start the business. You stay where you're working. Luckily, he was on the same street, and all they do is mufflers and brakes. Well, I did everything. So if a car came in with a stall out, water pump leak, a hose, anything, they would ship that to me. Well, after 6 months of that, the business grew up so much that I told my partner, hey, you're done. We got to come over here. We took off after that, and we had a nice 30-year career. 17 months ago, a major corporation came in, offered me a bunch of money to buy my building, equipment, and all the stuff, and I jumped on it. They wrote me a check, and I went home.
Let's move into your current business, which is Jaws on Fishing Charters. How'd you come up with the name?
The movie Jaws came out around 1974. And we were out there fishing one day, and we had a whale on. And out of nowhere, I yelled out, I got Jaws on. And my buddies looked right at me. I remember I had 2 guys with me, and I still talk to them today. They looked right at me and goes, Jim, that's an awesome name for a boat. The next day, we were spray painting. In the old days, we had stencils. We didn't have the decals like they have so much today. But we were painting Jaws on in the back of the boat.
Terrific.
That was probably 20 boats ago.
20 boats ago. I don't even have. Wow. Okay. Can you tell everyone about your current boat?
Yeah, my current boat is a 277 Great Lakes Edition. It's a Baja Cruiser. It's about 28 and a half foot long. We like to take out 4 people. It's usually me and the first mate. The boat fishes awesome. It's got some of the greatest electronics. I think Marcus was pretty amazed when he seen all the electronics that we have on the boat. And then the equipment that I use. I come from a tournament background. I've been fishing tournaments for the last 20 years. I have won every tournament on the Western Shore. I've won some out of Chicago. I've won multiples out of Waukegan, multiples out of North Point Marina, multiples out of Kenosha, multiples out of Racine. And last year, I finally got the big one. There's a tournament out of Milwaukee called the Brew City Tournament. It's a big tournament, big money tournament. And I've taken some seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, eights, 10s, 15s, but I've never won. Last year, I finally won it. I got my first place finish. So that wraps it up for this side of the lake.
Tell us about the fish that made you win.
That particular Brew City tournament was, you're allowed to catch 10 fish, but we were out fishing and we had 9 good fish and we really needed one more. And we were getting down to the end where we had to beat feet back to the harbor. We had all our poles deployed and I told my 2 teammates, I said, I think we've got too many poles in the water. We're scaring them away. We were out in deep water. Water was very clear. So we reeled up 4 of the poles by the boat. We fished way away from the boat. We reeled up 4 of the 6 poles by the boat, and we just left 2 there by the boat. It wasn't 15 minutes, and we got a 27-pound king, and we were able to land it.
That is enormous.
Yeah.
A king is a type of salmon. When we went out, there's basically 5 species that we could catch. Can you go into explain what they are and what the differences are and that type of thing?
Well, the first one we just talked about, the king, is a Chinook salmon. That's your bigger fish. They live about 4 years long, old in the lake. A lot of big meat on them if you're fortunate enough to catch them. With this year, we've really had a great Chinook season this year. They finally started doing some more stocking. You got to remember, 90% of the fish in Lake Michigan are stocked. If they didn't do no stocking in 10 years, there'd be no more game fish in Lake Michigan. They'd all be gone. So our biomass, which is your alewives, smelts, shad, gobies, we've been in trouble with that for a few years. Now, here in the last few years, our biomass is coming back because the stocking program was shut down. They really turned the stocking program probably 30% to where it used to be, which allowed our bait fish to come back. We have unbelievable bait fish right now. The last 2 years, you used to see pods and pods and pods on the screen. So they love to put Chinook out there. People love Chinook more than anything. It's the most fightingest fish in Lake Michigan. So Chinooks are definitely the fish that people really want to experience the big fish. Then we have the coho salmon. Coho salmon, there's a ton of them in the lake. It's a real pink meat, real reddish pink. It's delicious. Probably one of the best eaten fish out of all the ones in the lake. And they're anywhere between 3 and 9 pounds. Cohos only live in the lake for 2 years. They live 1 year in the hatchery and 2 years in the lake. So they're only 3 years old, so they don't get monstrous because they're only living 3 years. And then we have a rainbow trout. We call them steelhead. These fish mostly live offshore. They live in the upper part of the water column, top 20 feet normally. They're bug eaters. They're really fly eaters, gnats, and other things that are growing out in the water out there. We have massive hatches of bugs out in Lake Michigan. So steelhead, when you usually clean them, they're usually full of bugs. But the meat is just primo, really good on the grill. Then we have something called the brown trout. There's 2 species of brown trout in Lake Michigan that they stock. One gets monstrous. Actually, a world class one was caught. It was a world record about 4 years ago, probably, up out of Racine. It weighed 47 pounds. Wow. So it tells you that brown trout can get big. It's a trout, so they make a lot of fat. They do get old. I think that brown trout, they're around 10 years in the lake. Then the 5th species, to round off what they call a grand slam. If you catch all 5 of those, it's a grand slam. And that's a lake trout. A lot of lake trout in the lake. Lake trout are natural to the lake. They only stocked these other fish back in the 60s because the alewife situation. If you guys ever remember the shoreline, if you went down the shore, it stunk. It was so rancid down there from the die-off of the alewife. They had to do something. So they brought these silverfish in, these salmon, trout, and other things to help control that population. And it did. It brought the population down in check. And now they just keep trying to go back and forth of their stocking program to the biomass.
To balance.
That is, yeah.
I will tell you that my wife made the Chinook salmon on Monday.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was unbelievable.
It is good. If you can cook it right, it's really good. I know one thing. You guys got plenty of fish to eat for a while. So.
I estimated, we gave a lot of it away to family, but I estimated that we probably got about 100 pounds worth of fish. Yeah, the show is about safety, and I'd like to talk to you about safety precautions, safety training, safety knowledge when someone is boating and fishing. Can you go through any certifications that you had to obtain or licensing certifications, insurance, that type of stuff?
To be a charter boat captain, it's a pretty expensive deal. 3 weeks of school, very technical. I think it was around 100 question, multiple choice. And I think we were allowed 7 or 8 wrong.
Wow.
So that just tells you how strict the Coast Guard is on who they're going to give this license to. And some of it's through safety. We had to do the CPR class. There is definitely some safety issues. Actually, there's one, I think there's 5 modules of the test, let's say. And one module is on the safety side of it in both ethics. And
I also saw a big sign that you're drug tested randomly.
Yeah, so all captains are drug tested. Our first mates have to be on what they call a consortium. They're also randomly drug tested. So it's pretty mandatory that they don't want nobody all doped up out there and driving the boats and and putting people in harm's way.
Thank you. I don't blame
exactly.
It makes sense. Ryan was through. Is he a regular crew?
He's my first mate. Yeah, he's been with me this year. He does a great job.
Yes.
He was raised up on Lake Michigan also. His father had a charter boat, wound up selling a charter boat maybe 10 years ago.
Look, when I was a kid, my dad taught me how to put a hook on a worm on a hook, and we would cast into a river, and I would catch maybe a 3-inch fish, a 4-inch fish.
You could see on Lake Michigan, it's way, way more advanced than that.
Terrifically advanced. The radar systems on the boat, I mean, you could see how deep the fish were. And maybe I'm amazed because I've seen it at Cabela's, I've seen it at Bass Pro, but I've never experienced it. So to see, oh, look, there's a big one. It's coming up. It's coming. I'm like, wow. And then I learned how to read it a little bit, not at the expert level, but at least I could identify it, which was fantastic. What about any foul weather training?
So definitely there's a lot of weather training in the to get your captain's license also. That's part of a module also, the weather. We have to determine what clouds do, which clouds are which clouds perform wind, which clouds make rain, which clouds could perspective to wind, what could make wind make more wind.
At what point there's obviously a threshold where you would not take people out on the lake, which is what we experience. So, what is that threshold?
They go by wave height on Lake Michigan. When I see waves 2 to 4, I just try to reschedule the customer. There's no fun for that person to go out there. Well, as far as 1 to 3s, we'll still go fish. And the day you guys were out there, around 1 to 3s. And as you could tell, it was getting to that threshold that it's getting a little rough out here, but it's still fishable. So, I mean, those are the ways I like to take people on. Now, some people may show up, hey, we're all Vikings. We've been out there 20 times. We don't care what's going on. Then neither do I. Let's go.
Oh, so you're brave.
But, yeah, they're Vikings. So I don't mind taking people out if they're veterans and they don't mind the rough seas. But, like you and your son, you come out for your first time. I want you to have a good experience. I don't want you to come out, be sick the whole time. You're never coming back. And it's just not a good scenario. You're going to tell everybody when you got home, you told everybody how much fun you had, not how much I was hanging over the side of the boat. Oh, I ain't never going out there. Now all of a sudden your buddies are calling. I am a full-time charter boat captain now since I sold my business. But I not like a lot of charter boat guys where they got to go no matter what because that's what's bringing the money home for the babies. I'm probably one of the only guys out there in our harbor that say, you know what, it's getting kind of rough out there. I'm not going. Let's just cancel. These other guys are going to take you because they want the money. And if you go out and you get sick and you go in after 1 hour, you're paying for the full amount. I want you to go out and have the best experience that I could possibly give you. And not being sick, we call it the Michigan flu. If you don't get the Michigan flu, I think that's a great experience.
It was not only a fantastic experience, I wanted to invite you on my radio show, and definitely we're going to be doing this again and again.
Great.
We had just such a... And for me, it wasn't about the fishing. It was about spending time with my son.
Sure.
That's what it was for me. But his interest is fishing.
He was a reeler, no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was...
Every fish that got out, I'll take it.
Well, I made him. We were taking turns, and I'm like, oh, my God, this is so hard. You know what? The fishing trip is for you. You do it. Well, people don't realize how taxing it is. I will share with you this. I never get seasick. I've never gotten motion sick ever in my whole life. And I told you that on the boat. I'm not going to get sick. And you're like, oh, no, you might. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, he jinxed me. Crap. There was a couple points where I wasn't ill, but I was off balance.
Right.
And I was like, all right, he said, look at the horizon, because I didn't want to get sick.
Sure.
I'm like, oh my God, now I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the jerk who throws up all over his instrument panel, which I'm sure has happened in the past.
Yes, it has.
That's not fun. So we talked about the fishing competitions. What's the biggest fish you've ever caught?
The biggest freshwater fish was a Chinook salmon, 31 pounds.
Okay. All right.
And I caught that out of Waukegan Harbor.
Have you ever fished on the other side of the lake?
I have fished on the east side, Ludington, South Haven.
So how do you get clients?
So most of my clients come through my network and of my experience in the tournaments. A lot of friends know me. They know my tournament experience. I bring a lot of that tournament experience to the boat with me every day I go fishing. It keeps me, these tournaments, I'm actually pre-fishing for a big tournament for Saturday. We're going to be fishing out of Racine on Saturday. But it keeps me in the know of all the latest and greatest tackle, lures, where these fish are at, how people are catching them, how we're catching bigger ones. And it really keeps me in the loop of all that, plus my network of all my tournament friends. Like I've been doing this for 20 years, so I'm really into the that side of it. If you went down to Lake Michigan and you mentioned my name, somebody's going to know it. That's how many years I've been hanging around down there at the lake. And the other thing is Facebook. We do a lot of stuff on Facebook. We post a lot of pictures and post a few reports on there and stuff like that. So a lot through the Facebook side of it.
What kind of emergencies have you had to handle while at sea, even though it's a lake?
I've been very fortunate through the years. I've only had hooks in people's hands, or I can't tell you a few stories. Some of my friends,
Please.
5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, my teacher, the instructor that taught the class for the captain's license, I know him personally, and he was on a charter, and they had a guy go down, and they wound up giving him CPR all the way, and he passed away.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, he passed away on the boat. So I had another friend of mine that they tripped over something and whacked his head, knocked him out. The Coast Guard doesn't come out, pick people up. They make the boat come to the shore, and they have an ambulance waiting for him there. He made it through it, no problem, but there was a big scare that day. Things like that would be the ultimate scare tactic of, oh my God, now I'm a captain, what do I got to do? And I tell you, going through the captain's classes, you learn a few things stick. Some of the stuff like, oh, really? I think the best thing that I did in my captain's class, and I did it twice, I went to the CPR class. Good. That class, to me, was probably one of the most important things I've ever been to. And I liked it so much that they had a second class for the people that didn't show up for the first class. I paid again, and I went the second time. I wanted to learn everything I could about that CPR class. I don't think people understand what CPR even is. I didn't know what it was. I thought if somebody went down, I could do CPR. I'd have killed the poor guy. After you go to this class and find out the proper techniques, how to truly do it properly, I feel that if somebody did go down, I have a chance of doing it. I can just tell you, if anybody got a chance to do that class, geez, right. I mean, the stuff that I learned, whether it be an adult or a baby.
Yes.
Whether it's something stuck in their throat or having a heart attack.
Absolutely.
Those two things. I mean, it's just, like I said, I liked it so much I went to the second class just to make sure 100% I could do it.
It's interesting. And people in my classes, they think that the most likely thing that's going to happen to them is crime. And it's not.
Yeah.
It's medical. And I go into the whole, I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but I go into the movie theater and I said, you should really identify the exits. What's going to happen in a movie theater? People are like, a shooting. No. A fire.
Fire, yeah.
You've got cooking. You've got electric equipment. It's dark. Fire or a medical emergency. So you should probably note where and I've done this with my kids for a long time. Hey, where are the exits? Now they just do it automatically.
Right.
So we've talked about your summer activities. What about your winter activities? What do you do in the winter?
Well, I'm fortunate enough that I'm a guide, and I go ice fishing all winter. I take 2 months. My wife, thank bless her heart, she lets me go. I take January and February off, and I head to South Dakota, and I spend a complete 2 months out there. Last year, I was out there for 71 days. I fished 69 days. The other 2 days, I couldn't see my truck from the house, so I couldn't leave the driveway because it was blizzards. I mean, straight up blizzards out there. But I have a snow machine, something called a snow bear. And if anybody ever wanted to look that up, it's SNO bear. It's a tracked machine. We climb in it. It's got a forced air heater like a camper. I run something called Garmin LiveScope off of it. It's the latest and greatest technology in fish sonar equipment. And we go out and we never get out. I mean, I fish in my t-shirt mostly all day. We drill holes all inside of electric augers. And we go out, we drill holes, and we look for pods of fish, and we go catch those fish.
So do you have to drill a hole before you use the sonar? Or
yes,
okay.
Got to drill the hole.
What type of fish do you catch when you do ice fishing?
So most of the time we're targeting walleye and perch out in that area out there. Webster, South Dakota is where I go. There's several big lakes out there, Waubay, and several other lakes out there that we fish. But we're mostly targeting walleye and perch.
Okay, very good. I hear walleye's good eating.
Phenomenal.
Awesome.
And perch is just as good. I mean,
I've had fresh perch in South Haven actually.
Yeah.
And it was out of this world.
Yeah, it's really good.
Out of this world.
Very, very good.
Now I'm hesitant to buy fish at the grocery store now that I've tasted the freshness. And
well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there is some fish you can buy at a specialty grocery store, fish store that's real. But if you go to Jewel and you go to buy your salmon like you call it, look what that label says. Artificially colored.
Oh, interesting.
Absolutely. That fish is artificially colored to get that look. You didn't have to get that look on these fish.
No, not at all. It was, they were gorgeous.
That salmon there is artificially colored.
And by the way, thank you for teaching me how to debone the rest of the bones.
How to debone that piece.
Because I did. But before I preserved them, I deboned every one of them.
Yeah.
And it took a little.
It's a little work.
Yeah.
But when you put them on the table, the work is over.
Right.
It's time to enjoy.
Just eat.
Yeah.
You had given me advice, and I took your advice, to freeze the salmon, or the fish, I should say, is more than just salmon, in ice or in water. I've never heard that before. Can you go into why you recommended that? Well, if you
freeze it in water, it doesn't freeze or burn. The freezer can't get to the outside edge of the fish. So let's say a year and a half, 2 years from now, you take that fish out and thaw it out. The only pieces you're going to have to cut off is anything that was laying against the bag. So if you trim that off, the rest of that fish is just like you took it out of the lake.
Awesome.
When we were kids, we remember the old paper milk jugs.
Yeah.
Remember, there was always paper milk jugs.
Yes.
So that's what we did with all our fish. My mom would keep the milk jugs through the year, and we'd open those suckers up. We'd put our fish in there, staple the top back down, and put them in the freezer. So our freezer looked like link logs in there, all milk logs in there. That was all fish in those boxes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When does your warm season start, and when does it end?
So for Lake Michigan, we usually start about mid-April. We have a major coho run. Most likely, we're going to catch all our cohos every trip out. So if we have 6 people on the boat, like whatever that may be, we'll most likely bring in 30 cohos. Coho season is fast. There's a lot of fish, a lot of bites. We don't usually spend half days out there. Normally, in April and May, we can usually get all our cohos in a few hours. And it's most of the time it's a short trip because in the fast action, it's just one after another, rod after rod after rod going off. A lot of action. The fish are a little small. They're around 3 pounds. But as far as table fare, oh, man, they ain't no better than those things. That's the bomb.
Wow, that's terrific.
Yeah. And that'll go until about, so we'll start around in September, the 1st of September. The salmon head offshore, but the lake trout stick around. So we have a heck of a lake trout fishery, and that'll go all the way to the end of October. Our slips are available till October 31st. The whole month of October, later part of September, we'll be fishing lake trout, which are phenomenal eating also. And we usually catch a lot of nice ones too, big ones.
Is there something that you're not supposed to be eating a lot of Lake Michigan fish?
So that's why I try to chop all the bellies off. If you looked at those fish, it's kind of brought up a little bit. Mm-hmm. I chop all the belly off. They talk about mercury in the water. They talk about PBC, I think it's PCBs or PCBs, I guess they call
plasticky,
it. Yeah. Something like that. And I don't care, Marcus. I don't care what lake you go to. There is a amount of fish you shouldn't be eating out of those lakes. You have once a week, I don't think you guys are going to have a problem in the world. Now, you go eating that fish every day, you may or may not have a problem. Normally, that's why when I cut a fish up, there's some of the fish that you probably see me doing, like, boy, you sure threw a lot of fish away. I throw the bellies away. I just believe the fat, that's where all the stuff is at. Give me the filet mignon of the fish, and that's what I want to eat.
To be honest, I didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
No idea. Yeah. One of the great things that happened on this charter is the crew cleaned the fish for us. Yeah. So we came home with fillets. We had to debone it a little bit, but that was it. And it was very interesting to me because growing up, I would see everyone, slit the fish down the belly and remove the guts and then fillet it. And they had an electric knife, zip, zip, done. It was just very easy and amazing. And of course, the seagulls
they loved it.
They flocked around. And I told my wife, I came home, our maiden name is Siegel. So I came home, I was like, I saw your cousins today. She's like, what? To wrap up, do you have openings between now and the end of the season?
There is some openings between now and the end of the season. Yeah.
And how could someone get a hold of you if they wanted to book a charter?
Jaws on Fishing Charters. You can Google that. You can find me on there. My Facebook page also, if you just Jaws on Fishing, you'll come up with on our Facebook page on there too. More than welcome to give me a call. We can set some dates up for you and see if we can't get you guys out fishing.
Awesome. And Jaws on is JAWZON. It's a Z, not an S.
Correct.
All right, Jim. What final thoughts can you offer to our people about going fishing, having fun, doing it in a safe way, that type of thing?
Well, as far as charter fishing, I know you're spending money to go out for somebody to take you fishing, and that's good for some people. Other people want to go out themselves and do it. Lake Michigan gives you plenty of opportunities to do that off the pier. Here at the end of August, September, these king salmon are coming into the shore. Even though if the water's even warm, they're coming into the shore. They're coming into the harbors. Waukegan Harbor, Kenosha Harbor, Racine Harbor, all those piers gives a guy a chance to go out and catch one of these salmon without being on a charter and spend the money for a guy to take you out fishing. I think the charter fishing, though, is if a guy wanted to actually get into this a little bit, you go charter fishing a few times. See if you like it. If you do, you kind of get a handle on what kind of equipment you have to buy and how to network things and how to look at the guy's graph and identify that's a fish or something. I've been out, many people have came out fishing with me that are avid fishermen, even have boats on Lake Michigan. They want to come out and see how a tournament guy does it. What different am I doing every day compared to some of these other guys? I think the day we went out, the 2 other boats that went out, one guy had 5 fish, one guy had 9 fish. We had 14.
Yes.
I think we had 14.
We had 14.
Some of those tactics were tournament tactics that brought those other fish in the boat. Other people, charter guys, they don't know the tournament tactics because I'm involved in this stuff every day. I get more a handle on how to put more fish in the boat.
And it's very effective. Sorry, I cut you off.
It's effective, yeah. And I think the other thing is, and I cannot stipulate enough, that CPR class. Go. To me, it still intrigues me. If there was one tomorrow and I had I'd go to another one.
They're great. It
just very intrigues me how that does and how it does. But as far as safety, I think that's probably one of the coolest things that a guy could definitely learn.
Very good. Well, Jim, thank you for taking the time to talk to our listeners about your passion. And you'll have a repeat performance from me probably next summer at the early end if all the weather works out, because we had an absolute ball.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on the boat, Marcus. You and your son were a blast to have out there. You guys were, it's fun when you talk and you're out there fishing and the stories go on and you get to talk about this and talk about that and a few jokes here and there. And, that's what really makes life. And when you leave the shoreline and you're out in the boat, it's just so enjoyable out there.
Yes.
It's a different world, and it's a world that I think all people should experience at least once.
It was fantastic, unless they get seasick.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic...
Pick your day.
That's right. Fantastic time. If you want to get a hold of them, Google Jaws On Fishing Team, Jaws On Fishing Charters, and
you'll find us.
You'll find Jim Stepp. So thank you once again.
Thanks, Marcus.
We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.